I told you not to bring folks here without asking.
What the hell did you put in the water? No.
It reacts to entitlement.
Reggie tried to play it cool when his neighbor kept sneaking into his hot tub, but when she brought her friends and claimed it was community property, he responded in a way that left them all stained purple and completely exposed. Reggie Tolbert didn't grow up dreaming about a hot tub, but after 20 years of working doubles at the auto plant in Spartanburg, South Carolina, saving every bonus check and overtime dime, the idea of kicking back in his own bubbling slice of peace sounded like heaven. He found the perfect spot, a modest 2-story brick house in a quiet cul-de-sac just outside Fayetteville, Arkansas. Clean yard, no HOA, decent neighbors, and space for the one thing he always wanted, a custom-built cedar-encased hot tub right off the back deck. It wasn't a flashy setup. Reggie wasn't that kind of man, but it was his. At first, things were easy. The street was calm, filled with retirees, young couples, and folks who smiled but didn't overshare. Reggie liked that. He didn't need cookouts or block parties, just a friendly nod and folks who respected boundaries. And that's when Cynthia Hallbrook moved in. She was in her early 60s, recently retired from selling real estate out in Little Rock. Her house was right next to Reggie's, same floor plan, but with a high wooden fence that separated the backyards. Reggie noticed her during her move-in. Platinum blonde bob, giant sunglasses, and a voice that cut through the air like it had places to be. "Hi there," she called out one Saturday morning, waving a mug that said Number 1 Realtor. Reggie waved back polite. "Just so you know," she continued, "I'm a sharer. Don't believe in all these fences. Divides people too much. We're neighbors. We ought to be family." Reggie gave a tight smile and nodded. He didn't like where that was going, but it felt too early to correct a stranger on property lines. At first, she kept her distance, just made small talk when they ran into each other by the trash bins or when she walked her tiny bug-eyed dog, Tofu. But little things started adding up. One day, Reggie noticed footprints on the side of his deck. Another time, he found a wine cork floating in the hot tub. He told himself he was imagining things, maybe the wind, maybe a raccoon, maybe anything but what it really was. Cynthia helping herself. Then he got home late from work on a Thursday. As he parked, he heard laughter. 3 women loud, sloshing drinks, and the unmistakable bubbling sound of jets. His backyard lights flicked on. There they were. Cynthia and 2 of her friends sitting comfortably in his hot tub. Towels draped across his chairs. His outdoor speaker was playing 80s soft rock. Reggie didn't say anything right away. He walked around to the side gate, unlocked it, and stood on the deck. Cynthia looked up, raised her glass, and smiled. "Hope you don't mind. We were just enjoying this beautiful evening. You have the best setup." "I didn't invite anybody," Reggie said evenly. "Oh, we know," one of the other women said, chuckling. "Cynthia said it was fine. I paid for this tub. This is my backyard. You're not supposed to be here." Cynthia let out a soft laugh. "Reggie, relax. We're neighbors. Besides, you're hardly ever home during the day. It's just a hot tub. It's not like we're using your toothbrush." Reggie clenched his jaw. "Get out." That was the first time he said it directly. Cynthia didn't apologize. She rolled her eyes, took one last sip, and stepped out like she was doing him a favor. Her friends followed, giggling. Reggie stayed still until they walked back through the side gate. He drained the water that night, scrubbed every surface, but he knew this wasn't over. But some people don't hear the first no, and that's when the problem starts to really take shape. After that night, Reggie figured the message had been loud and clear. No more borrowing the hot tub, no more treating his backyard like a hotel spa. But that kind of clarity doesn't work on everybody, especially not people like Cynthia Hallbrook. Within a week, it started again. Not as loud, not as obvious. This time it was subtler, more calculated. A towel left over the fence rail. Damp footprints on the side steps. An empty White Claw can sitting by the filter. Reggie checked the footage from his outdoor camera. Nothing direct, but just enough to make it obvious someone had been there. Again. He added a lock to the back gate. reinforced the side panel of the fence with a steel bracket, even moved the patio chairs into the garage. And still, Cynthia found a way. One Saturday afternoon, Reggie came home early from running errands. The sun was out, his Bluetooth speaker was off, and yet his yard was filled with soft music and laughter. He unlocked the gate and found Cynthia standing in the shallow corner of the hot tub, solo this time, swirling her fingers in the water. "You're back early," she said with a fake gasp. "I was just making sure the jets weren't clogged. Looked a little slow the other day." Reggie didn't even respond. He just turned off the speaker, walked over to the panel, and powered the whole tub down. "You need to stop," he said, firm this time. "This isn't yours. You're not invited. Don't come in here again." Cynthia blinked like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. "Well, I never expected this kind of tone. I've lived in better neighborhoods with better manners, you know. I was trying to help. That filter needed cleaning." He pointed at the side gate. "Out." She got out, no apology in sight, wrapped in his towel, which she left in a wet heap on the chair. That evening, Reggie filed a report. Nothing criminal, they told him. No forced entry, no physical damage, no threat. Neighborly misunderstanding, they called it. "Get a no trespassing sign," the deputy said, barely looking up from his tablet. "Post it clearly, then we can do more next time." So Reggie did exactly that. Ordered the biggest, boldest metal sign he could find. Screwed it right into the back fence, facing Cynthia's side. All caps, black letters, legal code reference at the bottom. That didn't stop her either. She got petty. Mowed her lawn while blasting talk radio. Started tossing tennis balls into Reggie's yard by accident. Left passive-aggressive notes on his mailbox about excess chlorine drifting over the fence. And she kept making her snide little comments anytime they crossed paths. "You should really clean those leaves off your deck. I heard the pump making a weird noise yesterday. Hope it's not busted. I could have sworn I saw your cousin or whoever soaking in it the other day. Wasn't sure if that was okay either." Reggie kept his cool, kept his camera footage, started logging every date and time. But the thing that really pushed him came on a Tuesday morning. He was headed out to work, coffee in hand, when he spotted a stranger walking down the side of his house, shirtless, towel wrapped around his waist. Some mid-20s guy with wet hair and a smug look on his face. "Hey," Reggie called out. "You lost?" "Nah," the guy said. "Cynthia told me I could use the tub, said you were cool with it as long as I didn't make a mess." Reggie just stared at him. "She said you work nights, that you wouldn't even know." The guy took off down the street, towel still dripping. Reggie turned, walked inside, and sat down at his kitchen table. His hands were shaking, not with fear, with something else. This wasn't about water anymore. This was about respect. But if no one's going to stop her, maybe it's time he started thinking differently. Something she couldn't ignore. That week, Reggie stopped sleeping right. He wasn't afraid. He was annoyed, worn down, tired of waking up wondering who had been in his yard. Checking camera footage became part of his morning routine. One night around 11, he was brushing his teeth when a notification buzzed on his phone. Backyard movement. He opened the app and there it was. Cynthia in a silk robe holding a plastic tumbler and gesturing for two women behind her to follow. They crept into his yard like it was some Airbnb they'd booked. One of them reached over and clicked the panel. The tub kicked on. He took a screenshot and sent it to his cousin Tyrone. No caption, just the image. Tyrone responded with, "Yo, you trying to sue or prank? Either way, I'm in." The next morning, Reggie printed the photo and taped it inside his garage above his tool bench. A reminder. This was no misunderstanding anymore. This was theft. That weekend, Reggie caught Cynthia coming back from the mailbox. "Let me ask you something," he said, walking up calmly. "Why do you keep telling people they can use my hot tub?" She sighed like she had been preparing for this conversation. "Reggie, it's not that serious. We're neighbors. There's a level of understanding in communities like this. You weren't using it. You work all the time. I thought I'd help keep it from getting musty." Helping is asking. This isn't yours. You don't pay for the chemicals. You don't clean it. You don't fix the panel when it shorts out. Well, if you're going to be territorial about it, maybe you shouldn't have put it right where everyone can see it, she snapped. You ever think about that? He looked at her, eyebrows raised. So I'm asking for it? I'm just saying, she said, brushing past him. You can't expect to show off something like that and not share. Reggie stood there for a long second. He didn't raise his voice, didn't follow her. He just turned back toward his garage. Inside, he opened his laptop and started searching. Not for lawyers, not for fence upgrades. For something that could send a message without landing him in court. That's when he came across a Reddit thread. Some pool owner had been dealing with the neighborhood kids sneaking in late at night. His solution? A color-changing dye, non-toxic, invisible in cool water. But once it touches heat, especially from skin, it turns bold electric purple. Temporary safe but not washable for hours. A mark. Reggie read every comment, saved the product page, clicked order. 2 bottles. Express shipping. He didn't tell anyone at first, not even Tyrone. He wanted to see if it worked. 3 days later, the dye arrived. A small box with no branding. Inside 2 clear containers with thick liquid and a small set of instructions. Mix into warm water. Wait 12 hours for full activation. That night, Reggie drained the hot tub, refilled it, poured both bottles in and stirred the water with a long-handled skimmer. It looked normal, no smell, no color, just water. He waited. 2 days passed. Nothing happened, no signs of intruders. Reggie began to wonder if Cynthia had finally backed off. But on Sunday afternoon, around 3 p.m., his phone buzzed again. Motion detected. He opened the feed. There they were. Cynthia and 2 women again. Towels in hand, drinks already halfway gone. They slid into the tub all smiles. The jets kicked on, and then it started. One of the women let out a squeal. "What the hell?" the other gasped. "Oh my God, what is this? My skin! It's turning purple!" Cynthia scrambled to her feet, looking down at her arms, her thighs, her chest. Bright violet patches blooming all over. They scrambled out, slipping and swearing, knocking over a folding chair. Cynthia shrieked something about a chemical reaction and ran toward the gate. Reggie didn't laugh. He just stood behind the kitchen window, arms crossed, sipping a cold ginger ale. He'd never felt so calm. But now that the color had shown up, it was time for everyone else to see what had really been happening all along. By Monday morning, Cynthia's meltdown had made its way around the entire block. It wasn't Reggie who said a word. He didn't have to. One of the neighbors across the street, Mrs. Delgado, caught part of the scene from her sunroom and told her sister, who told the woman next door, and so on. By lunchtime, someone had even posted a thread in the local Facebook group. Does anyone know why there were purple women running down Cypress Oak Drive yesterday? The comments lit up. Reggie stayed out of it. He figured silence had more power than any defense he could give. But just in case, he clipped the security footage from the incident and saved it to 2 USB drives, one for his cousin and one he kept tucked behind the microwave. Just insurance. That night, he walked out to his backyard with a trash bag, collected the 2 towels they'd left behind, and tossed them without hesitation. No bleach was touching that mess. The next day, around 9:30 a.m., Cynthia marched up to his front door with red cheeks and a folder tucked under her arm. She rang the bell 3 times like she was trying to summon someone from the dead. Reggie opened the door halfway. "You tried to poison me," she snapped. No hello, no let-in. "That dye's non-toxic. Approved for pools. You can Google it." "I don't care what the label says. My skin looked like I rolled in a magic marker. I had to use baking soda for 2 hours just to get it off." "You weren't supposed to be in there," Reggie said, voice flat. "I told you I was just trying to—" "Save it," he cut in. "You've been warned, repeatedly. This was the cleanest way I could get the point across without calling a lawyer." "Well, maybe you should have done that instead of humiliating me." Reggie stepped out onto the porch. "You humiliated yourself. You don't belong in my yard, in my tub, or on my property. I put up a sign. I installed a lock. You ignored every bit of that." She opened the folder and held up a printed screenshot. "This is a complaint I filed with the city. I'm reporting you for unsafe chemicals and public endangerment." He looked at it, then looked back up at her. "Good, I have video." She blinked. "Excuse me?" "Security footage, all of it time-stamped, with audio. You're in it. Every single shvaye." She took half a step back. "You're recording me?" "In my yard? Absolutely." She didn't say another word, just turned and walked off, folder in hand. But Reggie knew her retreat wasn't the end. Women like Cynthia didn't fold easily. They shifted, rewrote the narrative, tried to come back through another door. Sure enough, 2 days later, someone from the Homeowners Association knocked on his door. An older man named Curtis Briggs, who looked like he still ironed his jeans. "Just here to follow up on a concern," he said, holding a clipboard and clearing his throat. "Apparently there was an incident involving your water feature." "It's a hot tub," Reggie said, "and it's mine. I have full receipts." "Well, there's been a bit of neighborhood discussion. A few folks feel the recent dye situation was a little aggressive." Reggie stepped aside. "Come inside. I'll show you the footage." Curtis hesitated, then followed him in. Reggie sat him down at the kitchen table and pulled up the footage from 2 Sundays ago. Cynthia opening the gate, slipping in, drinking, laughing, turning purple, and shrieking like a kettle on a stove. Curtis leaned forward, squinting. She just helped herself? For months. Reggie played clips of prior dates, her lifting the lock with a stick, her passing towels over to friends, her pouring wine like it was her name on the deed. Curtis leaned back in his chair. "Well, I guess that settles that." Reggie offered him a soda. He declined. "She's filed a complaint," Curtis said, standing slowly, "but I'll put my report in. Don't think anything will come of it." When he left, Reggie finally exhaled. This woman had ignored his words, laughed at his warnings, believed she was entitled to what didn't belong to her. But this was different. She'd been marked, not just by dye, but by proof. But just because the storm quiets doesn't mean it's past, not when pride's been bruised. 2 weeks passed. No purple visitors, no shrieking in the backyard, not a single unfamiliar footprint near the tub. At first, Reggie kept checking the camera feed every day, sometimes twice, just habit. But the longer things stayed quiet, the more it started to feel like maybe, just maybe, the message had gotten through. Then came the letter. No stamp, no envelope, just a folded piece of paper left under his welcome mat, typed in 12-point Times New Roman, as if that made it more official. "Mr. Tolbert, this is not over. You've created a hostile environment. I will be contacting an attorney." No name signed, but he didn't need one. That night, Reggie called his cousin Tyrone. The two hadn't spoken face-to-face since the footage was saved. "You busy?" Reggie asked. "Just got off work. What's up?" "I need a second opinion. Come by." Tyrone showed up 20 minutes later with a 6-pack and a pack of sour gummy worms. "You still got the footage?" Reggie nodded and handed him the second USB drive. Tyrone sat back on the couch watching the videos one by one. Every fence hop, every smirk, every party. Then came the scene. The purple reveal. He paused, leaned forward, and started laughing so hard his eyes watered. "She looked like she bathed in grape Kool-Aid," he howled. Reggie smirked. "Funny now, but she's threatening legal action." Tyrone wiped his face. "Man, she's bluffing. You think any lawyer gonna take that case?" "Hello, yes, I'd like to sue my neighbor for not letting me break into his yard anymore." "Come on." "I'm not worried about court," Reggie said. "I'm worried she'll try something shady, damage my stuff, blame me for something. So, what's the move?" "I want to make it impossible for her to come back. Not illegal, not harmful, just airtight." Tyrone grinned. "Petty, but legal. I'm in." They got to work that night. Reggie pulled out a notebook and listed everything Cynthia had done, every shortcut she'd taken. Tyrone had ideas too. Install a motion-activated sprinkler, replace the gate latch with a coded keypad, put a trail camera in the trees. I want her to know she's watched, Reggie said, every second, not just with the big camera, but little ones, hidden ones. Man's about to turn his backyard into Fort Knox, Tyrone laughed. They installed 2 more outdoor cams, one tucked under the grill lid, one disguised as a solar light. Then they zip-tied a small plastic sign to the gate. Smile, you're already on camera. But Reggie wasn't finished yet. That weekend, he drove out to a specialty pool supply store in Springdale, the kind of place run by former lifeguards and science teachers turned small business owners. He asked for the strongest, but still safe, pool-safe dye that would react to heat and skin contact. The clerk, a lanky guy with a baseball cap and heavy sarcasm, asked, trying to mark some raccoons or something? Something like that. He left with 3 small containers and strict instructions. Dilute carefully, circulate for 8 hours, no swimming until 24 hours later. Reggie followed it to the letter. Clean the filters, balance the pH, mix the dye just like the guy said. It looked like clear water, again. The trap was reset. Then he waited. 3 days, 4, a week, nothing. And that's when he started thinking, maybe she'd really given up. Maybe the embarrassment had finally outshouted her ego. But then, on a Thursday around 6 p.m., Reggie caught the smallest thing on the corner of his camera feed, a hand reaching over the fence. Just one. Like someone testing the temperature. Reggie didn't react, didn't rush out. He let it go. But he rechecked every alert, set his phone to vibrate twice for backyard movement. He wanted to be ready if things escalated, and deep down, he knew they would. But the real moment wasn't going to come from her stepping back in. It would come from what happened when the world saw what she'd been doing all along. The next Sunday started like any other. Reggie had slept in a little, took his time with breakfast, grits, turkey sausage, black coffee, then flipped open the sports section and settled onto his recliner. He felt light for the first time in weeks. No unexpected guests, no sideways comments from Cynthia, no new threats taped to his door. Around 1:45 p.m., his phone vibrated twice. Backyard motion detected. He paused, reached for the phone, tapped the app. The live feed loaded, and there she was, Cynthia, wearing a wide-brimmed straw hat and a lemon-yellow swimsuit, towel slung over one arm and a glass of white wine in the other. She was alone, but not for long. 2 guests followed, one carrying a Bluetooth speaker, the other wearing flip-flops with rhinestones on the straps. Reggie blinked. No hesitation, no shame. They moved like they belonged there. Cynthia tapped the hot tub panel. The jet surged to life. "Y'all are gonna love this," she said to her friends, her voice carrying through the mic in the camera. "He doesn't mind. I keep it clean." Reggie grabbed the second phone in his kitchen, a burner, no SIM card, just used for recording backups. He opened the second app and started the screen recording. Within minutes, Cynthia and both women had slipped into the tub, giggling, swirling the water, sipping wine like it was their private resort. The water was still clear for about 30 seconds. Then one of the guests let out a sharp, panicked laugh. "What is that? What's on my legs?" Cynthia looked down, confused. "What? Oh my God!" Her thighs were turning purple. Vivid. Streaks of violet blooming over her skin like someone had dumped ink into the water. One of the other women screamed, "It's on my arms! It's on my face! Cynthia, what the hell is this?" Cynthia tried to scramble out, but the tub was slick. She slipped, cursed, knocked over her own wine glass, and nearly pulled the panel loose, trying to get upright. The woman with the speaker climbed out yelling, "You said this was clean. What kind of reaction is this?" Cynthia, now dripping wet and covered in large patches of purple, panted, I don't know. This never happened before." Reggie kept recording. From the camera feed, he could see it all. Her panic, her confusion, her sheer inability to believe this was happening to her. She staggered out of the hot tub, wrapped herself in a towel now stained with lavender streaks, and darted for the gate. Her guests weren't far behind, shrieking and inspecting their skin like they'd been cursed. But the kicker? Reggie had installed a new motion-activated spotlight at the corner of the garage aimed directly at the path to the gate. As Cynthia approached, it blasted to life, flooding her with bright, blinding light like she was walking onto a stage. The guests screamed louder. Cynthia froze for half a second, then yelled, "You're insane! This is harassment!" Reggie stepped onto the back porch, phone in hand, calm as ever. "No," he said, voice low. "This is trespassing. Again, third time this month. Smile for the camera." Cynthia stood still, dripping violet, fuming. "You're going to regret this," she hissed. Reggie shrugged. "Already don't." She stormed out. The gate slammed behind them. Back inside, Reggie saved the video to the cloud, both phones and the USB. The next hour, his cousin Tyrone was at the door, howling with laughter as they watched it again on the TV screen. "Man, she looked like Barney after a sauna session." Reggie didn't laugh. Not much, anyway. He wasn't proud of embarrassing someone. He just wanted it to stop. "I told her over and over." Tyrone nodded. "She heard you. She just didn't care." That night, Reggie uploaded the footage to a private link and sent it to the HOA and to Curtis Briggs, the clipboard guy. No commentary, just the raw video and the dates. He didn't need to explain anything. The next morning, Curtis called him personally. "Son, I'm not supposed to take sides, but good Lord, that was something." Reggie just said, "I'm not trying to humiliate anybody. I just want to be left alone." "Well," Curtis said, "I think that message came through loud and clear." But just when it looked like things had finally hit their breaking point, Cynthia had one more performance up her sleeve, and she wasn't done trying to flip the script. By Wednesday, Reggie couldn't walk to his mailbox without feeling eyes on him. It wasn't a bad feeling, just different. Mrs. Delgado waved longer than usual. The older man with the Dalmatian gave a respectful nod. A teenage boy on a skateboard even called out, "Yo, man, that tub story legendary." Apparently, the private link Reggie had sent to the HOA hadn't stayed private for long. Someone, probably Curtis, or maybe even one of Cynthia's own guests, had quietly passed it along. And in less than 48 hours, the video had spread across the neighborhood like wildfire. No captions, no music, just raw footage of a woman walking into someone else's yard, getting dyed purple and stumbling out like a busted grape. Reggie didn't post anything, didn't comment. He just watched as neighbors began making small shifts, clearing their throats before speaking to him, choosing their words more carefully, treating him with a kind of reserved respect he hadn't seen before. One morning, as he was hosing off the deck, a woman from 2 houses down approached. Tall, glasses, probably mid-40s. "I just wanted to say," she said, "I've lived here 10 years. You were real patient. I don't know if I could have handled that with that much class." Reggie thanked her, not sure what else to say. Later that afternoon, he passed Curtis Briggs again, walking up the block in a polo 2 sizes too tight. Curtis gave him a small smile. "You know," he said, "I've sat through 6 HOA meetings where Cynthia argued about mailbox heights." 6! You gave us something far more useful." Reggie chuckled. "Wasn't trying to put on a show." "I know, but sometimes people need to see a thing to believe it." Even the lawn guy who cut Cynthia's yard seemed to avoid her place now, mowing the edges but not walking all the way in. Still, Cynthia didn't go quietly. That Thursday, Reggie found a letter in his mailbox, unsigned just like before. It read, "Shame doesn't last. You'll be the one people remember as the neighbor who used chemicals to attack a woman. Be careful." He showed it to Tyrone later that evening. "You think she really believes she's the victim?" Reggie asked. "She has to," Tyrone said. "If she admits she's wrong, she has to admit she took advantage of you for months. And some people just aren't built for that kind of honesty." It didn't stop there. 2 days later, Cynthia posted a vague but pointed rant in the local Facebook group. "Some people think humiliating others is justice. It's sad to see what passes for decency these days. No names, no direct accusations. But everyone knew. The comments weren't in her favor. Someone replied, 'Wouldn't have happened if you respected his space.' Another, Private property is private, period. One woman even said, "Imagine thinking a hot tub came with the neighborhood." Cynthia didn't respond. The post was deleted within an hour. After that, she disappeared from view. Her curtains stayed drawn, no more loud music, no backyard parties, no fence peeking, just silent. Reggie used that time to reset. He cleaned the tub one more time, drained it, scrubbed the filters, neutralized any dye residue. He didn't want it to be a trap anymore. He just wanted it to be what it was meant to be in the first place, a quiet escape. And it worked. For the first time since installing it, Reggie could soak in his own tub on a Sunday evening with no surprises, no interruptions, no worry about who might slip through the gate. Just peace. He looked up at the sky, water swirling around his shoulders, and let out a long, quiet breath. Finally, he muttered. But as any calm man knows, peace isn't the absence of noise. It's when the noise finally understands it's not welcome anymore. By the time August rolled in, Reggie had almost forgotten what it felt like to look over his shoulder in his own backyard. The cameras still ran. The keypad gate still clicked shut with a satisfying beep. The hot tub, crystal clear, dye-free, secure, untouched. But Cynthia? She hadn't said a word in nearly 3 weeks. That kind of silence would have been welcome if it didn't feel so loaded. Reggie wasn't naive. He'd grown up with 2 older sisters and a grandmother who could win an argument with just a look. He knew when quiet meant resolution and when it meant someone was plotting a comeback. It came the second Tuesday of the month, a certified letter, real envelope this time, signature required. Reggie signed, brought it inside, and sat down at the kitchen table before opening it. The paper was thick, expensive, legal letterhead up top. Notice of intent to pursue civil action, filed by Cynthia M. Halbrook. Claim, intentional public humiliation, unsafe use of chemicals, and emotional distress. Reggie blinked. Emotional distress from someone sneaking into his yard? He flipped through the pages. Her attorney, someone from a small firm out of Fort Smith, had outlined everything. The footage, the dye, the Facebook comments. Even neighborhood hostility, she claimed, had risen since the incident. It didn't matter that she'd trespassed, that she'd lied to her friends, that she'd ignored signs and locks and cameras. She was spinning it and trying to scare him into a settlement. Reggie didn't call Tyrone right away. Instead, he reached out to a lawyer one of his co-workers had recommended a few years back. A woman named Marla Jennings, straight shooter, worked out of Fayetteville and didn't flinch easy. They met 2 days later. She reviewed the footage, the dye, the sign, the gate, the HOA letters, all of it. Then she looked at Reggie across her desk and said, "You're fine. She's trying to intimidate you. If it goes to court, which I doubt, I'd be happy to represent you." "You sure?" he asked. "I'd put money on it," Marla said, "but let's do one better." She drafted a letter of her own, 2 pages, simple and direct, stated the facts, repeated trespassing, ignored warnings, legal documentation of ownership and boundaries. Then she ended it with a sentence that made Reggie smile. "If your client wishes to discuss a countersuit for ongoing harassment, misuse of private property, and reputational damage, Mr. Tolbert is prepared to do so." They mailed it out the same day. Cynthia's lawyer never replied. Instead, Curtis Briggs from the HOA showed up on Reggie's doorstep that weekend with a clipboard and a strange look on his face. "Got a minute?" he asked. "Always," Reggie said. Curtis stepped inside and laid out a folder. "There was a meeting. Cynthia filed a formal grievance with the board. She's accusing you of disrupting neighborhood unity." Reggie raised an eyebrow. "Is that even a real thing?" Curtis chuckled. "It is when someone won't accept they lost." Reggie poured 2 glasses of iced tea and slid one across the table. "So, what does this mean?" "It means we reviewed the footage, the letters, her posts, your lawyer's response, and we voted to dismiss the grievance." Reggie nodded slowly. "But just so you know," Curtis added, "she's planning to put her house on the market. Word is she wants to relocate. Says the area's become hostile to women. Reggie didn't smile. Not right away. He just took a sip of tea and stared out the kitchen window at the corner of his backyard, the gate, the keypad, the tiny camera tucked inside a fake rock. Maybe she'd leave, maybe not. But the real win wasn't in making her move. It was in standing up, staying firm, and never once lowering himself to her level. Reggie had drawn a line, then made it legal, then made it visible. But even when the last word gets said, the people who watched it all unfold carry their own lessons forward, and the street never forgets who respected the fence. August slipped into September and the neighborhood finally exhaled. It wasn't loud, the change, it was quiet. The kind of quiet you only notice when you've lived with chaos for too long. Lawnmowers still buzzed, kids still kicked soccer balls against garage doors, and Amazon trucks still made their rounds, but something deeper had shifted. Cynthia's windows stayed shut. Her porch light burned out and never got replaced. The ceramic welcome frog on her front step disappeared. The woman who once paced the sidewalk every morning with her little dog and her good morning, said with side eye, vanished from view. A few neighbors speculated in hushed tones. I heard she's moving closer to her daughter in Tulsa. Her pride took a bigger hit than she expected. Can't say I'm sad to see her go. Reggie didn't chime in. He didn't need to. People already knew the story and he wasn't interested in rehashing it. He just kept doing what he'd always done, mowing his own yard, minding his own business, and checking his cameras when he felt like it. One Saturday morning, a new family came to tour Cynthia's home. A young couple, early 30s maybe, with a baby in a carrier and a clipboard in the man's hand. Reggie saw them peeking over the fence and decided to go out and trim some hedges. They walked over a few minutes later. Hey, the woman said, we're thinking about putting in an offer. You live next door? Yeah, 4 years now, Reggie replied. Nice area, the man asked. Quiet neighbors? Reggie gave a half smile. Now, yeah, real quiet. They laughed, not knowing just how much weight those words carried. That evening, Tyrone dropped by. He threw himself into one of Reggie's patio chairs and cracked open a soda. So, Queen Grape move yet? Almost. For sale signs out. Last I heard, she's waiting on inspections. Damn, Tyrone said. Can't believe it came to all this. All over a hot tub. Reggie shook his head. It was never just about the tub. It was about being disrespected constantly. She acted like she had some claim to it, like I was just in the way of her comfort. Tyrone nodded slowly. Some folks don't believe a boundary's real unless it's nailed into their pride, Reggie chuckled. Well, hers is purple-stained and on camera. They sat in silence for a moment, listening to the jets from the tub whirl gently. This time, no one climbed the fence. No one poured themselves a drink. No one told him to share. Just peace. Later that week, Reggie got a knock at his door. It was Mrs. Delgado holding a small houseplant wrapped in brown paper. I just wanted to say, she began, that a lot of us saw what happened, and some of us, myself included, should have said something sooner. Reggie took the plant, surprised. You didn't owe me anything. Maybe not, but when people see something wrong, staying quiet only protects the loudest voice. We all saw what she did and no one stepped in. That's not how a community's supposed to work. He nodded, unsure what to say. Well, she said, stepping back toward her walkway, if you ever want to come by for tea, my door's open, and I promise not to jump in your tub. Reggie laughed, really laughed this time. The new kind of quiet wasn't just about silence, it was about recognition, small acknowledgments, a neighbor waving without suspicion, a child slowing his bike to say thank you when Reggie handed him a ball that rolled into his yard. Respect had been earned, not demanded. And that kind of peace can't be forced. It has to be built. But while fences mark the edge of property, the way people treat those fences reveals who they really are. Reggie sat out on his deck one evening, the sky fading from orange to gray, the hum of late summer cicadas filling the spaces between thoughts. He had the tub bubbling low, not for use, just to keep the circulation going. The water was clean, clear, and his alone. That meant something now, more than it ever had before. When he first installed it, he thought he was just buying comfort. A reward after 2 decades of sweat and late shifts. something to ease his back and give him an hour of silence after long days. But it had turned into something else entirely, his battleground, his line in the sand. It was never about luxury, it was about ownership, not just of property, but of peace. He'd spent months trying to explain that with words, respectfully, calmly. And still he was ignored, not misunderstood, ignored. Like his no didn't carry the same weight, like being polite made his boundaries optional. It wasn't until he took a different route, creative, deliberate, and completely within his rights, that people listened. And that was the part that stung the most, because it shouldn't have taken that much to be respected. A week later, he watched the moving truck back into Cynthia's driveway. No goodbyes, no neighborhood wave, just boxes, tape, and silence. She didn't look his way. She didn't need to. The story had already closed itself. Later that night, he called his mother, who lived down in Baton Rouge. She'd heard pieces of the drama through the family grapevine and wanted to hear it from him. "You handled it better than most would have," she told him. "I kept it legal," Reggie replied. "That's not what I mean," she said. "You didn't let her take your dignity with your peace. That's the difference." They sat in quiet for a moment, then she added, "And Lord knows you could have acted a fool and still been in the right." Reggie smiled. "Was tempted, but I knew if I did, it'd become about my reaction, not her behavior." "That's how it always is," she said. When the call ended, Reggie walked out onto his deck one last time that evening. The air had cooled. The wind carried hints of fall. He leaned on the rail, watching the steam lift lazily from the hot tub. His tub, his space, his quiet. What he learned over those weeks wasn't just about fences or cameras or clever dye. It was about standing up for your space without burning everything around you. About drawing a line without swinging your fists. About picking a fight only when the cause was real and letting the truth do the heavy lifting. People like Cynthia will always exist. They wear different faces in different neighborhoods, but the pattern's the same. Take what's not theirs, claim what doesn't belong to them, twist reality until they feel justified, and when confronted, they'll always paint themselves as the victim. But you don't have to yell to prove them wrong. You just have to be ready with your facts, your calm, your camera if needed, and hold steady, because when truth shows up in color, it can't be ignored. And the neighborhood never forgot the man who did it without breaking a single rule. So if you ever find yourself in a situation where your voice is dismissed, your boundaries ignored, or your patience mistaken for weakness, remember Reggie Tolbert. Because sometimes the strongest message isn't shouted. It's recorded, time-stamped, and turned skin purple when it gets too bold. Respect in the end isn't given. It's earned and protected. If you found this story powerful, hit that subscribe button. And remember, when your peace is tested, guard it with both hands. And never be afraid to make your point in a way they'll never forget.